Good evening, everybody. Thank you so much for coming to UKM and spending this Saturday with me and Daryl here. Alright, I'm the second last speaker, I think, after this Vivian. So, this is actually it's not really a paper, but it's actually a thinking process, which is something which I've been working on for some time now. I construct it in this way. It's constructing an ethics and human security framework. Now, this is partly some of my slides, or some of the wordings of my slides have already been captured by Latif's presentation. So I'll just go through the slides quite fast. But essentially, what I'm trying to do here, or trying to think about a construct of incorporating two aspects of philosophy, which is ethics and also moral reasoning, into the framework of human security, into the framework of human security. Now let me go through the slides with you. Yeah, next please. Alright, now ethics is back. Alright, why ethics is back? Because nowadays we talk about ethics everywhere. No? In the academic fraternity we talk about ethics in education, ethics in research, ethics in writing. Alright. We also talk about ethics, legal ethics, medical ethics, medico-legal ethics. Right? We talk about ecological, environmental ethics. Right? We talk about ethics in research, in science, in technology, ethics in management. Alright? Ethics in religion. There is also a component of ethics in bioethics, and there's different perspectives of ethics in faith system. Okay? So, whatever we do at this point of time, the element of ethics has been addressed, or is an important component when we talk about any decisions that we make. Now, having said that, is ethics profound? It appears to be a profound concept that we have to deal with when we talk about livelihood and our existence in this world. Okay, next slide please. Okay. The next concept I'd like to introduce is the idea of moral reasoning. Of course, philosophically there are many variations to what we see moral reasoning is, but essentially it applies to an analysis or to specific events to determine what is right and what is wrong. So the essence of moral reasoning is for us to determine in ourselves what is right and what is wrong in terms of certain actions or positions that we take. And this is pretty much dependent on our own worldview, and these are the four worldviews I would like to introduce. One is an individualistic worldview, looking at self-interest, looking at self-interest. The other, the utilitarian view of the greater good of people. This is basically in policy making. When I was in the ministries, when we talk about the science policy of the country, we always talk about the greater good. Alright, it must benefit the most number of people, that's the point. Then of course there is a justice view, meaning which the idea of fairness, justice, impartiality. So the fourth one is a moral perspective. That means does a decision or behavior maintain the fundamental rights of all human beings. Now whichever worldview that we prescribe, then we have to come out with the idea of moral reasoning. Okay? Now, next slide, please. The gist of the matter of when we talk about human security is because there is a concept or the rise of insecurity. When we talk about security concerns or security issue, is because of there is a emergence of insecurity. Now, when we talk about security in my line of business or in my area of specialization, when we talk about security meaning threat, alright? Meaning in Malay we call it ancaman or threat, alright? So we perceive some level of threat, alright? Basically, when we talk about security, it also concerns the security of the state, right? It's always about the security of the state. Has a military component to it as well. But having said that, in the last half a century, we see that the rise of other security elements other than the state. Right? We have security issues when it comes to water, resources, energy, right? We have pandemic diseases, we have, I don't know what, so many types of security, all right? So what we do here is, some of the security are actually normal, what do you call that, terminologies that we use, but in actual proper definition, whenever you say there is a security issue, it must go through a process of securitization, okay? If it doesn't go through a process of securitization, then the country or the state will not recognize that particular issue as a security issue. Now that's another topic. Okay. So we have so much of other aspects of security: cyber security, energy, health, environment, and things of that sort. Next, please. Now, the problematic that we need to address here when it comes to ethics and human security is essentially security has become too state-centric, alright? Because whenever we talk about security, it's always about the security of the state, alright? The whole discourse about debate about security has always been centered about the security of the state. Other aspects of security, like for example, the environment, the cosmology, or the human security aspect, are all in the periphery. So the whole idea of this human security concern or debate or movement is essentially to push the focal point of state security to human security. It means earlier the focal point of security was state concern. Now we try to bring the focal point of security to a human security concern where state is a part of it as well. That is the gist of it. Now, having said that, there is also resistance, although most states agree generally to the 1948 Declaration of Human Rights, which is the 1994 document of Human Security Report, which spoke about human security, is essentially a refinement of the 48 Declaration. But having said that, not many states would like to embrace it fully, alright? Certain countries do it sparingly, alright, very selectively, in implementing those principles. Now, so you have now, what the problematic here, you have abuses of the state. Now, let me also mention abuses of groups, alright, and also states. Also, there is a rise in human rights abuses all over the world. Whenever there is conflict, there is also human rights, human security abuses. Emergence of other security issues, like for example, non-traditional security. I mentioned to you, scarcity of resources like water, the choices of energy. These all are security issues that's been securitized. All right, and there is also a rise in education and public awareness and public diplomacy and media reach. The idea of public diplomacy is a very important element when it comes to advocacy, right? Like for example, events that happens all around the world, you would probably get the news within half an hour, okay? The example I'd like to use is during the Asian tsunami, I was lying down and watching TV in my 7th floor apartment, and I could feel the movement of the apartment in Puchok, slight movement, Then I was wondering why that I can feel some movement. So I went out to see if there anybody running out of the apartment. Nobody is doing it. Everybody was wondering, because we never really experienced tremors in Malaysia. Alright, but while I was watching TV, within the next 20 minutes, there was already a report. So information comes to your living room as early as about 20 to 30 minutes, wherever it happens in the world. So the power of information is there, and public diplomacy essentially is about influencing policy making by way of being aware and supporting advocacy initiative. Alright? There is also a rise in civil society movement, especially in more developed societies. In Malaysia, you see the last 20 years, I think there is a greater movement of the civil society and advocacy initiatives. Alright? So then, of course, the other one is inculcation of ethics and moral reasoning into securitization thinking. This is what I try to promote here. Next slide, please. Alright, this is just to show you that when we talk about human rights or human security, this is a risk just to show you where you are. And wherever you are in the world, there is some level of risk. Alright, some level of risk. I'm not only talking about risk of violence, but also risk of other vulnerabilities. Alright, it can be violent, it can be other forms of vulnerabilities. Okay, so next please. This is quite interesting. Alright, this is I think about last year. Alright, we had this exodus or mass exodus of the Rohingya refugees, all right, from Myanmar to Bangladesh. Some to Bangladesh, and many of the boat people also came to Malaysia, Indonesia, and this is what happens. The first picture is about immediate, because Malaysia and many of the countries do not recognize refugees in Malaysia, right? So therefore, in order to stop, we actually discourage people, the boat people, from coming. Okay, but the only country or the people of Aceh, can you see the Aceh? All right, the people of Aceh, despite or went against the advice of their government, and the Aceh fishermen went on into the sea, all right, and invited the refugees to come in, the boat people, and give them aid and supplies and whatnot. Okay. Now that was the turning point that then later the other countries, including Malaysia, decided to accept the refugees. The reason is the argument that the Acehnese the Acehnese argued that during the Asian tsunami the world helped them. All right, so it is their turn. So they are not going to listen to their governments. Okay, so you can see that the level of humanity there. Okay, and these are some of the pictures of the boat people. All right, and you have mass killing of the Rohingya people in the border regions between Thailand and Malaysia. Okay, and these are people. This is quite saddening to look at these people. These people are stateless people who do not have a state. Their home state, which is Myanmar, doesn't want to recognize them. All right, so they are being abused. So, and the other countries are not willing to accept them as well, including Bangladesh. Right? They have other issues as well. They are at the wrong side of history. Right? I mean, that is another topic for discussion. Next, please. Okay. Now, I'm not going to touch on this. Essentially, human security, when you mention, it's putting the legitimate human security concerns as the focal point of national security. All right, as mentioned by Latif. Next, please. Okay, the conceptual framework is essentially, when we talk about human security, it's about all these aspects. Point number 2 is about material, physical, socio-economic habitat, and whatever elements that the human has to have in order to have a good life and a livelihood. Now, Amartya Sen talks about extreme vulnerabilities of people, right? And also, when we talk about human security, there is also a heavy element on human development issues. Next, please. Now, this is human security now. I'm not going to touch on this. Latif already done it. Next. Okay. Now, what are the human security concerns? Now, essentially, when we talk about human security, these are the major issues. Okay, issues of conflict prevention, mitigation, because there are conflicts all over the world, and there is a lot of issues of migrations and IDPs, internally displaced people, and cross-border migrations. We have human rights abuses and violation, minority oppression, marginalization. We spoke about it a while ago. Human trafficking issues, all right, child abuse, environmental issues like tsunamis, forest burning, things of that sort. Resources security, this is water and energy security issues, food security, and so on and so forth. Next, please. Now, this is a concept of human security. The whole idea, the two particular concepts that comes out in the document is the freedom from fear and also freedom from one. Alright? So if we were to look at, these are the one particular concept we are looking at, the protection of human beings from all those vulnerabilities. Next please. Okay, I would like to talk to you a bit more on this. This is a concept of human security. It talks about three particular concepts. Freedom from fear, which is freedom from physical abuse. Alright? The physical security. And then freedom from one, it's about human development. And also freedom from indignity. This is essentially about human rights. Okay? So in order to have a credible human security record or human security standards, then all these three elements must be in sync. Next please. Alright, these are the 7 categories of human security. I'm not going to mention this. These are economic, food, things of that sort. Okay, next. Now this is also people-centered. Latif already mentioned this, I'm not going to touch. Next please. Okay, this is the difference between state and human security. Alright, essentially when I make this comparison is because it's quite interesting for us to look at for whom is the security. When we talk about the state security, essentially it's about state-centered, and the human security is supposedly supposed to be human-centered or people-centered. Alright? Basically, when you talk about state-centered security, it's against military, political threats from other states. But so a human security is concerned can be anything. Right? Can be anything, can be from all the elements. Okay? Now these are some of the things. Look at the strategies, alright, or actors. These are the stakeholders. Basically when you talk about state security, it's always about the state. Because the military is actually an instrument of the state. Only a state can wage a war. Alright? We cannot wage war. Alright? You also have the other stakeholders when you talk about the human security debate. It's people's families, communities, alright? Other stakeholders, the local communities, the NGOs and whatnot. So this, next please. Now this is the framework I would like to promote for the thinking process. It's essentially when we talk about human security, we know the concept of human security, we know what is the direction of human security, but how do you want to have a sustainable human security discourse or a particular framework? Because one of the major issues of human security is the inability of the security fraternity in a particular country to embrace this concept fully. Okay? Because whenever you talk to military people or people in the security fraternity in most of the countries, they always talk about interests. They always talk about national interests. Alright? So how do you marry this national interest into responsibility towards human being and also the other elements? Okay? So this is a particular concept that I'd like to promote. One, to have a sustainable human security environment, primarily you need to have strategies for human survival, which is freedom from fear, meaning which relative peace. Okay? Number two, there must be human development. Alright? Freedom from one, meaning which there must be economic progress. It is the responsibility of the state in order to ensure a safe habitat, safe environment for them to live in and prosper. Alright? And also all elements in order for the human race to strive. The third one is the concept of dignity. Now it's very important because dignity is a very relative concept. Darrell used to give this example. What is the cost of dignity? Alright? For a beggar in India, like for example, is it how many rupees? Alright? It's one of the things. So the concept of dignity must also be enshrined into the idea of humanness. Alright? Which is very rarely we talk about this. Because state is always, as I mentioned earlier, state always sees itself as a primary actor. It doesn't have to answer to anybody else. Right? Okay. Now, then of course the idea of human sustainability, freedom from vulnerability. Alright? So, as a country progresses economically, we find that all these elements becomes more attainable. Alright? Because the democratic institution may be more stronger. Alright? So, but of course, if you go to countries like Syria, or one of the issues of it is because of, or some of the Arab countries which are war-torn at this point of time, is that some of the issues are, those countries are almost failed states. The institutions are not there. So in order for the human security discourse to strike, you need to have systems that work. Alright, I'll stop there. Thank you. Alright, I think there's one more slide. Is there another slide? Okay, these are the challenges to it. Okay. My suggestion is to relook the idea of security, getting the states to inculcate ethics and moral reasoning in the security frame. So whenever we talk about security of a country, of international relations, is always the starting point is the state. So never about individuals. Right? So that's one. Investing in like-minded leaders and politicians. Advocacy is extremely important. Stronger civil society movement and reconciling demands of economic growth and transiting activities. Okay. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Ravi. Open for questions and discussion now.
It's almost 7.
Yes. You have security questions?
One question.
Yes.
Okay, in this current situation as it is, given the global power systems in place now, do you think this, what are the views of human security really working?
The situation in the world, meaning which one? Power?
Yes, for example, you have a bipolar kind of system now, or China is coming up, so you have different states.
I think the human security pursuit is essentially within states. Alright? Now, if you were to compare Southeast Asian countries, ASEAN, the first country that spoke a lot about human security was Thailand. I'm not sure what is the reason. Probably because Surin Pitsuwan was there as a foreign minister, and he was the Secretary for ASEAN at that time, and he was a proponent of this. But if you look at a country like Singapore, it doesn't speak much about this. So you find that countries which has stronger democratic institution and allows for social and public diplomacy, public advocacy of individual rights, you find that this idea of humanness comes into policy making. Now, let's look at Malaysia. When I was in the ministry, we always talk about people first, greater good. But in actual fact, it is national interest comes in as a regime interest. Right? So when we were drawing the policy of the country, we looked at how many engineers that we want to create. Right? We want to look at how many patents that we want to, we call it RSA, how many researchers, engineers and scientists that we want to create. Then of course there's another concept of well-being comes into play. But that is also given by the broking institute, right? It was not ours actually, by the consultant. So we were marrying, essentially it's about balancing progress and the need for being there as a world leader, So I think that there is a problem with it. So in Malaysia, the human security debate is not strong. Alright, public advocacy is there by some of the movement, democratization, greater awareness. I mean, those are things I will say is one of them as well. But it is being spoken largely by academics in that sense. That also not very strong. But in other countries where democratic institutions are stronger, I think the idea of human security, because the idea of human security as a refinement of the 48 Declaration, it's something which is quite new. Alright, because I think probably the last few years or so, 1994, when the UNDP report came in, the concept came about. Of course, the refinement of it has been there. It is pretty much because of the fear, or rather the realization, that states have failed miserably to protect its own people. Alright? I mean, that's pretty much the realization. As because the states, there is no rules and regulation to curb the states. Second World War is a very good example, where you have no regulations or systems in place to curb states. So after the Second World War, with the League of Nations, you find that all the conventions and treaties are actually to bind the countries, to make it difficult for those countries to go to war. The idea of the just war, like for example, is essentially to make it difficult to people or to state to wage war and to make them more responsible. I think those were the movement, the realization that you need to curb the so-called the supremacy of the state. It's an ongoing process, but we're talking about other countries.
Wouldn't the countries look for the security of their own citizens, and that's where it stops. The security of other citizens from other states would be of no concern to them. So the concept of human security
precisely
bounded to this nation-state concept. Isn't it a very limiting sort of?
It is, to a certain extent. I think it is. The whole idea of humanitarian intervention is an anomaly, because to intervene itself is an infringement of bilateral relations. All right. First, as you mentioned, you need to be invited to intervene. But now there is a thing about you can intervene when there is a gross human rights violation or atrocities conducted. But then again, it's a contested notion. It's actually a very amorphous kind of a concepts that is being used by states to serve a particular need, like for example, humanitarian intervention. Who asks you to intervene? What gives you the legitimacy to intervene? The kind of questions will come up. Why you intervene here and not there? So these are the things. Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you very much.